This episode of The Rookie Hunter is sponsored by North Arm Knives. North Arm Knives are handcrafted and sold directly through a father and son team right here in British Columbia. Choose from a selection of outdoor knives, kitchen knives, and the brand new folding knife from northarmknives.com. They ship internationally and guarantee all their work. Callie and I use their products and give them our stamp of approval. Go to northarmknives.com. Hey guys, welcome to episode 45 of Rookie Hunter. Today on the show, we're very excited to have Land Tawney. He is the president, CEO of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, which is a national conservation group based in Montana. They do have chapters up here in Canada. They opened one up in 2014 here in British Columbia, and most recently, our neighbors in Alberta opened up a chapter as well. So really glad to see they're making a presence up here, and look forward to seeing that grow. He tells us a great story at the end of this conversation about a sheep hunt he had back last season in 2016 that really kind of connects all the dots and all the points that he makes throughout the first half of the conversation. So I really hope you guys enjoy this one. Public lands or crown lands, however you want to look at them, are very important, and it's a resource that everybody needs to protect. We own these lands, and we got to make sure that they're there for us to use and for future generations. So don't take this topic lightly. Make sure you're keeping up on what's happening in your neck of the woods and do your part to get involved. So most of you know there's a new way to support the show. You can head over to therookihunter.com and click on the store tab. We now have some beautiful t-shirts available. We have a few designs and options there. There's cotton tees, which are a bit more affordable, just your basic t-shirt. And we also ordered some very nice bamboo t-shirts. So for guys who want to use these to get some exercise in or take them out in the backcountry, that's going to be the shirt for you. So head over to therookihunter.com. Check out what we have there. There's also an option to chip in $5 to conservation. We have a few options up there for groups right now, and we're going to keep adding to that list as we can. So don't feel obligated to do that either. If you already contribute in some way or another, then don't feel like you have to do it. It's just an optional thing that you can do, and we appreciate it. So thanks, guys. We appreciate you supporting the show and conservation at the same time. You can also contact us through the website. All our information's up there. We're pretty active on Instagram, not so much on Twitter, but we're out there. So make sure you follow us. As always, please subscribe and leave a rating or review for us on iTunes. You tired of me saying this yet? It just helps us reach more people and makes us more visible. So Americans, we need more help from you guys. Please go to the iTunes store and do that for us. Canada, you're kicking ass, so no complaints there. But we do appreciate it, guys. It only takes a couple seconds. And yeah, thank you very much for doing it. Anyways, let's get into it. Sit back, relax, crack a cold beer, and enjoy episode 45 with Land Tawney. Well, is this episode 45 or 46?
I think it's 46.
Because we did one we're recording backwards. We did one with Beyond the Kill, which was the Swapcast, which is actually going to come out on the 15th, and now we're recording this one. So it's a mystery. It's either 45 or 46. I have no idea.
Yep.
Useful information. Cal, what's new?
I don't know.
Not much.
Not much. Opening day's on Sunday.
It is for rifle season anyways. Bow season's already in the full swing of things.
Yep. I went for a hike the other day, and I'm actually, you know what? A lot's new. A lot is in my mailbox. A lot is in the shopping bag. It's just a lot of final stuff that I'm trying to buy for this trip.
Yeah.
So there's all these, stickers on the door saying your package is in and all this stuff. And Bree's like, where's all this coming from?
Yeah.
But they're not like the pricey items. They're just the, like I've got a bag of game bags that I just bought. So they're I don't know if anyone's familiar, but I haven't used them yet, but they're Caribou Gear, and it's the Carnivore 2 package. I think there's a Carnivore 3 now, but it's essentially the smaller package that they provide. It has 4 boned out meat game bags in it.
Nice.
With a little 4x4 tarp. And yeah, it's all in a neat little package.
Looks
and they're
pretty
reusable synthetic, so you can just use them, wash them, use them.
pretty cheap in the long run if you think about it.
Yeah, it's about $55, and then you add your tax and shipping. But
yeah,
if you reuse them, I think you get your money's out of them in a hurry.
For sure.
Yeah.
Sweet. I don't know if it was a text or if it was on the podcast when you said, I'm done buying stuff. And I said, we'll see.
Yeah, I do remember that. I meant big stuff.
Okay.
Although I did buy an axe.
Right.
I bought an ice axe.
Yeah.
So Garrett and I think, have ice axes. You're going to have to pick one up too.
No.
No, I think...
I'm not going to try and keep up with you guys.
So the cool thing about the axe, we don't have to get into this in detail, but they're very useful for like clearing a spot for a tent because they have the little shovel on the back, right?
Yeah.
So you can make stairs with them in the mountains. You can make a runway for a plane coming in. You can the Kuyu guy said he sticks his in when the ground is really steep.
Yeah.
And he hangs his pack off of it.
Oh, nice.
There's just so many little things. You can, when you got a ton of weight on your back, you can flip it around and like wrap it around a tree or something and kind of use it to pull yourself over an obstacle. So I don't know. I was just reading all these things and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. That's good use. Yeah, that's number 3. That's number 4. That's number 5. And I'm like, okay, screw it. I ordered it.
Nice.
So what I'm thinking is I might take a normal trekking pole, adjustable height wise, and then the axe.
Nice.
And I'll adjust them so they play nice together when I'm using them both at the same time.
Cool.
As far as height. And then, that's my plan.
Nice. Well, I'm making fun of you for buying stuff, but I did just buy a sleeping bag today.
Yep.
For guys who are looking for a warmer all-season bag, it's the Marmot Trestles or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's rated for 0 Fahrenheit or minus 18 Celsius. It's a synthetic bag, and I got it on sale. I think it was like $142 or something like that. Nice. So obviously when you spend more money, you get into the more packable, lighter weight bags, but I don't know, man, I'm willing to save a bit of cash this time around because it's an expensive trip as it is, and take a bit of a weight penalty. I did, it came with a compression bag and I cranked the shit out of it, and it packs up pretty small, like small enough. Anyways, I did a trial run with my backpack with my old sleeping bag, which is only rated for -7 or something like that.
Yeah.
And takes up the same amount of space. And even with that, I still had a ton of room in my pack. So
that's the main thing. That's the one thing I was concerned about was just making sure you had enough room in your pack. And
there's tons of room.
But if you can get that thing packed down, then that's all that matters. And you got a good, you don't have to worry about freezing, right? Yeah,
exactly. And then
and if it's that cold, then maybe next time, or I don't know. I mean, if it gets that cold, I think it's almost like, do we have to cut the trip or move to a different spot?
Yeah.
Because if we've got -18 sleeping bags and all the layers we're bringing and a stove in the tent, and we can't make it work, then it must be pretty freaking cold.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully it doesn't get to that. We'll see.
Yeah.
But and then I'm gonna pick up a pad too. I can't remember. It's the Thermarest Neolite something rather. I can't remember what it is, but not too pricey. Well, I think it's still about $130 or something like that. But that will insulate me from the ground, and I think you guys have something similar to that one.
Yeah, and that's the key stuff too. The sleep system. You want to make sure you have at least a bare minimum to accommodate you in those conditions, right?
Yeah.
You don't want that. You don't want the question mark to be hanging over the sleep system.
No.
So I think that was a good call to buy some of that stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. Freezing my ass off wouldn't be fun.
No, and then you're not getting sleep, and then your energy's down. It just affects the whole thing.
Yeah, or I end up having to peace out because I'm freezing.
Yeah.
Which would suck. So yeah, that was the one thing that I'm like, everything else is good, but got to be, prepared for the elements, and getting a good sleep and being warm is obviously important. So that was a no-brainer, and that was a need, not a want. So So I'm stoked.
Cool.
Yeah. It's going to be a comfy little sleep system, I think. I'm
Nice.
kind of excited to get the fire going in the
Cool.
Kafaru teepee tent and get all of our ground cloths set up. And
Yep.
yeah.
And you've been working on your food too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've got I can't remember the name of the food dehydrator, but basically it's a circle shape and you just got trays and stuff in there. So I did a bunch of vegetables, banana chips, and then some tomatoes and that. All these things are going to be sort of put into different meals and that. So either for dinner or for breakfast stuff, which would be good. And I'm going to make up some fruit leathers too, and then granola bars, which is separate from the food dehydrator, but got to get as many calories in us as we can. I've got a pack of my last pack of mule deer pepperoni.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring that. Finish her off.
I was reading some articles, and the ultralight hiker rules for packing food seem to be that if 1 ounce didn't provide 160 calories, not to bring it.
Right.
But I think obviously you got to bring some comfort food, whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
Too. So I mean, if you're not hitting that in all categories, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to bring some. I'm going to tighten my mic stand. Some canned salmon. Got some nice stuff. That's going to be a bit of a weight penalty as well. But I'm going to make some pretty good pasta with that.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to do like an Alfredo sauce with salmon in there and that. So should be pretty.
And what are you going to do? Dehydrate that?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can either get like angel hair pasta, which cooks really quick, or you can get a different kind of pasta, cook it ahead of time, and then put it in the food dehydrator, dehydrate it again. And then you can basically decrease your cooking time when you boil it up again. But the salmon that I got in the can, you could also dehydrate that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to bring it in the can. Like I said, it's going to be a bit of a weight penalty, but to have some fresh-ish fish anyways, because dehydrating meat can be tricky.
Right.
Yeah, so I've read about guys doing ground beef and stuff like that, and it can turn into like hard rocks. It's not that great. So I figured, fuck it, I'm just going to bring a couple cans of salmon. We did the same thing on the One to Fuca Trail, and it was worth the wait.
So do you want to do an episode on food?
We could do one. Yeah. I thought, actually, I kind of mentioned that on Instagram, that because we're taking two different approaches, and I don't think one is better than the other. It's just your preference, and you need to have a food dehydrator to do the stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah. And also the equipment that you have and the energy you want to put in.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the main things that people are concerned about is the time that goes into it. Mm-hmm. But literally, man, you can just throw anything on there, and that's it. It does all the work.
Make some mac and cheese, throw it on.
Yeah, totally, man. All you have to do is cook it. And some guys even just take like leftover food. So if it's potatoes or rice or anything, they'll just whip that onto the food dehydrator. So those things are already cooked, and then you can just throw them on there. Leave it overnight if you want in some situations.
Sweet.
And then it's ready to rock and roll.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, it is 5 o'clock, so we should give Mr. Land Tawney a call here. Oh, nice. That's new.
Fancy ringtone.
Mm-hmm.
Mike.
You can hear us okay?
Oh, my God.
It's great when these things work, but it's a pain in the ass when you're not having any luck.
Yeah, it was, I tested to see if I could make calls and all that, but didn't test the sound, so I couldn't hear you guys.
All right, well, let's get into it then. If you don't mind, just give us a bit of an introduction about who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Land Tawney. I'm the president and CEO of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and so I have the privilege of leading the fastest growing kind of sports organization in this country.
Excellent. And you guys are based out of Montana, correct?
We're based out of Missoula, Montana.
Perfect. Are you a native of the area? You grew up
I
there?
am. I'm fifth generation Montanan. So first family member was born in Montana in 1862.
Holy cow. So the public lands go way back in the bloodline.
Yeah, we came out as following kind of timber. My family came over from Ireland and went to Nova Scotia, and then came to Montana following timber, and then here because of the resources that the state has.
Right. Excellent. So yeah, maybe just tell us a little bit about what the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers are all about, and what you guys been up to.
Yeah, I think I'll go simple and then we'll go deeper. But really, we were formed around a campfire back in 2004. I think everybody knows that anything good always comes around a campfire late at night, and that's really where BH came from. But we're here to really make sure you have access to your public lands, and then the fish and wildlife habitat once you get there. And so that means getting engaged at a local level, making sure we're engaging in travel management plans on our federally managed lands, and then and then also up in the provinces up in Canada, and then it goes from there to kind of, I would say, like regional kind of issues, and then all the way out to Washington D.C. To like really think about how we get things done for hunters and anglers. So make sure you have access to, and then the fish and wildlife habitat once you get there. It means I could delve into each one, like either those two pieces quite a bit, but fundamentally, if you don't have access to your public lands, you're not going to be able to hunt and fish, and you're gonna hang up kind of like the socks, right? Like you're going to be done for the year, and that for a long time if you don't have access. And so that's where place we are. And the thing there that we've been fighting most is really this idea of divesting, our federally managed public land. So there's 640 acres, United States, that belong to, each and every American, and then anybody really that comes and recreates the United States. And so that belongs to all of us. And there are those that want to sell off some of those lands to pay off our national debt. And we think that's a real short-sighted idea. And so that's probably the number one we're really fighting on that side. And then you look at, the kind of fish and wildlife habitat once you get there. It's working on resource management plans at a local level, and then all the way out to I think regionals where the protection areas like the Bighorn up in Alberta, or like the Blackfoot here in Montana. So that's kind of a regional level, and then out in DC, really looking at kind of how budgets are managed for our federal agencies. Making sure they have appropriate resources. One of which is near and dear to all of our hearts right now is that we've got a catastrophic fire season here in my home state of Montana. We've got 24 fires out of the 70. They're kind of big ones across the country, and it's not great. And what that does, it's bad in many ways. In some ways, it's good, but what it does is really suck the budgets of the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service, and so they don't have money to do other things that are access projects, fish and wildlife habitat enhancement. And so one of the things that we're working on out in DC to get fire off of regular budget, and really treat it like a hurricane, treat it like a tornado, treat it like floods. And so that it doesn't create a large sucking sound within the agencies. So those are a couple of examples of kind of the policies, I guess, we're working on. And then, we do a bunch of other stuff too, but really the policy stuff is what I'd start with.
Just in terms of the scope of the BHA, so you guys recently had Alberta join as a chapter, but so how many chapters do you guys have?
We cover 35 states now and 2 Canadian provinces, and then the District of Columbia out in D. So we're growing, by the leaps and bounds, and I think that we have chapters going to come on the Carolinas this year, North Dakota, Ohio, potentially Missouri, even Oklahoma. One of our strongest growing chapters is in Texas. They've already doubled their membership this year in the state, which is quite phenomenal to me. We have a state of 2% public land. But they're crushing it. I think what's happening there is that really they care about 2% they have in Texas, and they don't want to lose that. And then they also do a bunch of recreating, in the West, and it's just near and dear to their hearts, which again goes back to that, 640 million acres belongs to all of us.
Right. So if we could take, say, overall North American top 3 challenges and top 3 victories, what would you say there?
When you think so when you're saying challenges like in the last year that we're seeing right now, and then the same thing with victories, define that for me.
Yeah, I would say just in probably 2016 and 2017, just recently.
Okay. So challenges, I think you're right. The sale of public lands, I think that's been on everybody's mind. It's been challenging at a state level as well as a national level. So I think that's number one. I think, and a lot of these are going to have silver linings on the other side of successes.
Yep.
I think that the wildfire stuff that I just mentioned, I think that's a huge challenge that we're still facing today. And then the last one I would say has been a challenge is really, conservation of the sage steppe ecosystem, which really is home to the greater sage grouse, which is this awesome bird, and through collaborative efforts, which was very challenging and many years in the making, that we were able to together, kind of with ranchers and federal agencies, state agencies, and other NGOs, to really keep that bird off the list. And so it's still a challenge. I think we're looking at seeing whether or not those plans that everybody works so hard on are implemented. So I'd say that's a major challenge. The 3 successes, I think a major one would be really what just happened, this spring when Congressman Chaffetz from Utah introduced a bill to divest, 3 million acres in the West, and he was met with very stiff opposition. And I think hunters were at the, proverbial tip of the spear in that whole fight, but we also, saw, I think, the awakening really of, kind of the more human powered kind of side of the coin, which, again, I hate putting, folks in each one of those camps, because we have a ton of people that in our ranks that kayak and mountain bike and mountain climb. But really, I think, the brands in particular, like Patagonia and stuff, stepped up in that fight. And, and the congressman in really unprecedented fashion really pulled back his support for that bill and basically a week. And when he did that, he held this dog that I'm pretty sure doesn't hunt. He was dressed in camo.
We saw that picture.
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. That dog was like, "Don't touch me."
Yeah.
And then he used the hashtag Keep It Public, which was a hashtag that we helped create 4 years ago around some public land rallies. And so I think that was a huge victory.
Oh yeah, we saw the outcry on that up in Canada here, and Definitely. Yeah, it was pretty impressive. We're looking at BC going, maybe we should have a little more of this fire with some of the issues we're dealing with up here.
Well, and I think, I think that's partly, where we're going. I think with our Alberta and British Columbia's chapters, British Columbia has been around for a while, and Bill Halen and the crew have been just crushing it up there. But, you can only do so much as a volunteer. And, and then we have our new Alberta chapter. And I think, one of the successes I would say of BHA is really being able to staff up and help enhance the efforts of our volunteers on the ground. And so that help is coming soon in Canada. You've heard it here first, but we've been advertising position for a while, and we're going to be, we've offered a job to somebody, and hopefully they say yes here in the next couple of days, and then we're able to announce kind of that position up there, which again will help kind of enhance, I think, the efforts that people are engaged in already.
Yeah, awesome. For sure. That's great. You mentioned the public lands campaign that was hugely successful, and you see it even to this day through social media, just constantly coming up in our Instagram feed. What other methods are you guys using to get people engaged? Because you're doing a great job, and I think we need to take that as an example up here in British Columbia.
Yeah, so I think, social media is obviously it's a cheap and easy way to get out to the masses. Sometimes, it provides an opportunity to have a two-way conversation. So, there's a lot of back and forth that can happen. But I think, it still doesn't, it really doesn't take the place of face-to-face conversations.
Right.
And so I think, these pint nights that have been going on have been hugely successful, and that can be, anywhere from 5 people getting together to 60 people getting together, and really, coalescing around, what BHA is, and then really talking about the issues that are on the ground at that point. So that face-to-face piece, I think, is gigantic. I think, there's a couple more I would mention, and the one I know, Canadians hate drinking beer.
Yeah, we're drinking right now.
That's a requirement.
Yeah, had an airplane, right?
Yeah.
But is that we've had these brew fests, and the brew fests again are a great way to bring people together, and it's like a much larger kind of scale, and I think you have the opportunity then to really start to talk to some of those other user groups that aren't necessarily right in our wheelhouse,
right,
and get them more comfortable with hunting, or hunters, I guess. And our conservation ethics. So I think the brew fests are great. And the last one I would say is, maybe I'll mention 2 more since I'm on a roll.
You bet.
But it's like storytelling, and we just did an event in Seattle at the Filson kind of flagship store there, where we had 8 storytellers. One of which was Steve Ranella, another was Ryan Callahan from First Light. And then, a bunch of diverse stories. And I will tell you that like the amount of energy that's in the room and the ability to kind of get the kind of ethos across that is like this backcountry, like it's just a perfect way to do it. So storytelling has been highly successful for us. And then the last one is really like connecting people through food.
Right.
And so, we've had some, kind of some wild game kind of, all the way from a potluck to kind of high-end dinner done by chefs. And I think the more that we kind of open the door to people through through food, it's just a great way to connect. And, I know that every time I'm sharing something that I've killed in the woods or on the water, it's just a great way to pass along that experience, and then also share some food that, some people just don't get. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think
some of the things that we're doing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the food piece is definitely something that brought Mike and I into this hunting world, which we've been doing for the last few years. When we started when we were about 30 years old, but and then having harvested a few animals and being able to share, it kind of brings it all full circle. So then that's when you really get the pride, and it's just a great feeling, really.
Totally.
Kind of brings you back to your roots.
It does, and I think that, you think about the foodie movement and people that want to eat locally and, make sure that they're eating kind of organic food. Well, there couldn't be anything more organic than wild meat, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's a huge point. With all these events you mentioned, it sounds like you're getting the non-hunting folks out to them. How are you guys managing to rope them up? Because obviously hunters and anglers are going to definitely go out to these types of events, but I find that sometimes the non-hunting community might shy away from them. So what's your approach for that one?
Yeah, I think we've laughed about it, but great conversations happen over beer. And
True.
I think that having a pint night at a local pub or brew house, and then having like a big brew fest, like that's a way again to I think the world's problems are solved over beer, and then you got to figure them out again in the morning. But I think that provides a good opportunity. I think that we're not I think BHA is like, we're very conscious about kind of the ethos and image that we portray, and it's not chest thumping. Look at the biggest bull that I shot or the biggest ram. It's more about the experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, one, that's not intimidating. I think when you see some of that, it's intimidating. And then 2, I think when you're talking about the experience, like the sweat and the toil and the adventure, I think that, those non-hunters who, backpack or go mountain bike, they get that piece. And so I think that's a big reason why we're attracting them. And then I think the last piece is really through something we've already talked about, but is food.
Right.
I think food breaks down barriers. And I will say that, we have a long way to go there. I think some people still just can't even conceive what it means But it's a great place to start.
I kind of feel like it's on us as hunters to be that bridge and to kind of put ourselves out there, which that's the other challenge. I don't know, in BC specifically, there's a lot of people that have been hunting forever and they were born into it, but I don't get the sense that they're really kind of standing up on any soapbox and kind of trying to start those conversations. They're kind of just, I'll do my thing and I'm happy if I don't have to talk about it. But I don't know if that's really helping at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome that you bring that up. I think Stephen Ranella, there's the two ways I would answer this. So Stephen Ranella talks about, there's some bad actors within the hunting community that give us all a bad name, whether that's poachers or slob hunters. And do we want to let them continue to shoot holes in our boat, or do we kind of like kick them out and try to be, the good faces for hunting? And I think it's that second piece, right? Like we will sink if we keep them in the boat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think go ahead.
No, for sure. And like just recently in British Columbia, I'm not sure if you're aware, but they banned the trophy grizzly bear hunt. Yeah. And we were just talking about this the other day where, when you're seeing it pop up in social media, the hunting community that we've seen commenting is being sort of aggressive and they're not really approaching it in the right way. And I think the guys who could provide some science-backed information are the ones that are sort of avoiding the conflict and not really getting involved, which is too bad because then, just reflects poorly on the hunting community when it's these loudmouth guys that are, just giving us a bad name. So it's in our hands, I think, to really step up and, spread a positive word and outlook on hunting. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse, and we're going to lose more opportunities if we don't stand up and start talking. So,
yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, and I think that let's try to I guess minimize the effect of kind of the bad actors, and then try to be the best positive voices that we can, right? And as our overall percentage of the population as changes, it couldn't be more important to continue to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys did that Starbucks episode a while back, which I think you did. Was it at the Starbucks headquarters or something like that?
It was at their headquarters in Seattle.
And I think that's such a cool idea, and sort of inspired us to start talking about that with some organizations up here in British Columbia to maybe do something similar, to go into a place that's sort of out of our element as far as the hunting community goes, and really talk to people about our approach and our experiences, and exactly what you said, to start sharing stories with these people and educating them a bit more. So that was a really cool event. Are you guys doing more stuff like that? I guess that's sort of what you're doing all the time, but.
Yeah, I think, I'll answer it broadly and then I'll dive maybe a little bit deeper, but the first piece is like what makes you uncomfortable. It should be like what you gravitate towards, right?
Totally.
Like it helps stretch the way you think, and then it also helps you get your point across where you're not preaching to the choir. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think it's up to us again as hunters to be thinking about that all the time. And one of the crowds that I've mentioned already is kind of like this human powered kind of crowd. And there's the Outdoor Retailer Show, which large retail show. It's been happening down in Salt Lake. This year was their last one because they moved out because of the politics down there. But we're talking like all these brands that I think hunters use, like whether that's a Kelty tent in the backcountry sometimes, or a Big Agnes pad, or a sleeping bag by whoever. Like we're using a ton of those products right now, and so I think it makes sense for us to be talking to them anyways.
Yeah.
But also, again, those folks that you're talking to understand like this word grit, right? That you can only really feel in these places, these wild kind of places that we still have. And that grit, it's where nobody else is going to help you besides yourself. And the public lands don't care, if you're a rich banker or a school teacher, like you got to do it on your own. And I think, a backcountry skier gets that, a climber gets that. And so, we went down to Outdoor Retailers this year. We're going down to a thing in Jackson Hole this year called Shift. We've been working with Patagonia on some stuff. So I think that the more that we do that, the better. I'm going to an outdoor bloggers thing that Literally, I think we're one of 2 hunting organizations that's going to be there. And again, I think going places that make you feel uncomfortable, I think, is a good thing. And so I think the more that we all do that, the better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we were just having this conversation with a group of guys last week, and there's sort of a retail store here. It's called Mountain Equipment Co-op, which is sort of like the REI equivalent, I guess,
Okay.
in Canada. And they've sort of been outspoken that they're against hunting. But between the 4 of us, we're starting to add up all the things that we've purchased for hunting from that store, and it's thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's kind of a good example of places we should start reaching out to and see if we can get their support behind us, because I think we're all out there for the same reasons. If you're, like you said, a rock climber, a skier, or mountain biker, or whatever, we're all there to enjoy it. And these public lands can all be taken away from us, and so it's important that we're all on the same team. And if we're not, then it's not good for anybody, I don't think.
Yeah, and I encourage you to have that conversation. And I think if we can have that conversation about the 90 or 95% that we all agree on, then that's an easy path forward, right? If we focus on that 5%, which is the taking of an animal, which is the majority of that, like it's a hard conversation to start with. I think eventually people get comfortable on both sides with the idea that some people just don't like animals being shot and others like to shoot them and eat them, and I think that you get past those barriers if you can really coalesce around that 90 to 95% first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of show that it's a win-win or a net positive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think people understand the role that hunting has in conservation and wildlife, and just protecting habitat and all that kind of stuff. So it's all a big circle, and we're all on the same page. We just don't know yet, especially up here in Canada, it feels like, anyways.
Well, in the urban versus rural thing, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it would be good to kind of go into some of those urban areas and set up and have some conversations.
We just did a journal article about these guys in Harlem that fish all the time.
Yeah.
And like, to me, like, it was this awesome article because it's like, you think about New York City and the guy, was it like 7 million people or something that live there? And it's like about like finding these oases, but it's also like finding that common ground, right? Like, and it's like telling those stories and letting people know in New York City, you may feel like your life is totally crazy, but there's these oases that you can find where you can kind of get some of that solace that the rest of us covet and enjoy every single year, where they might not enjoy it all the time. So I think it's just I think that urban idea versus rural is one that we need to be thinking about all the time as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess this is more specific to BC, but what are your thoughts on the whole road density issue? And do you think BC is kind of one of the worst areas for that issue?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like say the absolute worst, but I would say that yes, road density is a super big problem, and from my understanding, it's just like this industrial road complex that keeps on feeding itself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only, do you deal with the roads that you have now, but the incentive to put new roads in that go along with, development of one kind of another. Like it seems backwards to me. And, I think it's study after study after study shows, how animals react to roads, and it's not good. They're looking for security. And those roads, really, fly in the kind of the face of that. And so, what do we do? I think, there's some things about, I think talking about gating off roads to create security. You get into the access question there. And the age old, well, we don't have access to it anymore. And I'm like, well, you can get on your own 2 feet or on 4 feet. And so there's still access there, and it just means that we have different access in different places. And so, like, with the existing road network that you have, that you're not taking away anytime soon, it's super, super expensive to kind of recontour. I think thoughts about like providing security is really important. And then I think going forward, and this is where I think that I'd say two things. I think protecting, large swaths of what we have that's, still intact, I think is vitally important. And then I think for those areas that are being developed, trying to be engaged, in the planning process. And I think the planning process piece is really what I know the least about. I know, our British Columbia chapter is super engaged in a lot of that. And then, definitely the kind of protection piece. But I think for my own, just to be, clear, is I think that's the one as far as engagement that I don't know the most about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's so many stakeholders.
It's a tricky one because we've been hearing arguments from, guys that say they've been going up to this certain lake for, 40 years, these old guys, and they're taking a service road and all of a sudden there's a gate up there and they can't get to their old fishing hole anymore. So it's a tricky one, man, because it's important, I think, that we control access to the backcountry, but also keep it open. So it's a topic you sort of have to tiptoe around and try and make everybody happy with. And I'm not sure how you do that.
Yeah, I think it is tricky. And how do you get through tricky situations as you build relationships, right? Yeah. I think relationships are important in all aspects of life. And, whether that starts at home or with your friends or at work or, with the people that think differently than you. It's about, building that relationship. And I think, this is I don't know how this will come across, but I think, that no matter what, nobody's ever always going to be happy. And I think we have to be comfortable with that, is that, I think there's some places where we wish there, wasn't motorized use that we can complain about. And then there's the description that you just made. And, where there are people that anything kind of shut down for motorized use, they complain. And I think sometimes when you have that complaint on either side of that issue, then maybe you've found a solution in the middle.
Right.
And I think, in particular, this route that's been open forever to go to this high mountain lake, those ones that should be talked about,
Right.
and really, this has been a traditional use, and, let's keep that travel route open and maybe shut off some of the stuff around it so that there's, that both kind of opportunities can take place. I think every time we get to that, it's, my way or the highway, is that may happen short term, but boy, as far as a long lasting kind of piece that stands the test of time, that won't happen. The pendulum will continue to swing back and forth if it's just one person get what they want, or one constituent. So I think it's, it's really compromise and relationships that get us through some of that.
Yeah, good point. So you guys do the rendezvous every year. And it's something we keep hearing about, and guys saying you got to come down and check it out. So tell us about the event a little bit and why we should make the trip down there.
Well, it's a party that you can't afford not to come to. Okay. It's we've named it the Rendezvous in the true sense of the word. Back when trappers would be out in the hinterlands and they would come together once or twice a year, and they would share stories and trade their wares and really just have a really good time. And I think that's really the theme of what we tried to do. And so now that we're growing and we have people all over the continent, it's so awesome to pull them together. And I think the energy that you have in that room, it's really hard to describe, but you could have 20, 30, 40 somethings, and that kind of just inherent energy that they bring, as well as kind of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s that have this sage kind of wisdom that are energized themselves because they see the young folks coming up, and then they want to pass on some of that wisdom and plot and scheme together. So I think that coming together of the tribe is really, it's hard to describe how powerful that is, but I think that's the main thing we try to do.
Cool.
But I've mentioned the kind of the high end dinner that we do, and so that it starts on a Thursday, and we have 5 chefs that come in and cook a meal for 72 people that is really, you would think you were in a French restaurant somewhere. It's some of the food that you're eating. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And then on Friday we do a bunch of chapter training for our volunteers. So last year we had about 100 people come from across the country and learn best practices and talk about some of the challenges and stuff that they have. And so that leads us then that night into like a brew fest. And, we've talked a little about the brew fest, and the one that we've had here in Missoula the last couple of years, we've had 5,000 people at these brew fests. And so
Wow.
It's been pretty awesome. And then we go into Saturday, and Saturday is really like a bunch of seminars. And so that ranges from how to use bear spray in the woods, which is pretty pertinent. There was just another attack here in Montana.
Wow.
And to like how to scout from the couch. Randy Newberg did, how do you, he goes into all these areas as he's doing his TV show, and how's he so successful? Well, he really does a lot of work, with maps and online stuff before he goes down. So that's something, all the way to how to use social media better.
Cool.
I think Ryan Callahan and J.R. Young did one last year on how to use the whole animal. And so, talked about the heart and some, maybe sometimes, pieces of the animal that people like really move past.
Right.
So that's kind of like our seminars. And then we have this wild, we call it the Camp Chef Cook-Off, and our chapter leaders nominate people to represent their states, and then they prepare a dish right there, and then we have judges that judge the competition. And I think last year we had 15 chapters that participated, and the Oregon chapter ended up winning with some fresh oysters. Like it's kind of hard to compete with, especially when you're in Montana. So that's an awesome event. And then that night we do a storytelling session that's just out of control.
Cool.
And we did at an old theater this last year, and packed the house, had like 750 people in there, and it started off with this young girl who told this story and kind of had this video to go along with it that just brought the house down. And Randy Newberg told the story, and a bunch of others. So Stephen Rinnella's brother Matt was absolutely hilarious. So that happened Saturday night, and then it's kind of we're picking up the pieces the next day. But it'll happen this year, April 12th through 14th in Boise, Idaho. Boise is we've had our rendezvous there before. We try to move it around a little bit. It is a little bit tougher on staff to go from home ground of Missoula to Boise, but we got a good volunteer group down there, and been in the planning process since our last rendezvous got done in April. And so we plan the event in Boise, and what we really like to do is make it accessible to the people. We're trying to keep costs down as much as possible, and so that anybody can come and really share in kind of the revelry that is that weekend. And so far we've kept this family together, and that's what we want to keep doing, is just build this, ever-growing family that comes together, and then, they take that energy home and help us build kind of one conversation at a time.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, we mapped it out already because we've been seriously thinking about coming down. I think it's only like 8-hour drive for us from Kelowna.
Only 8 hours?
Yeah.
Come on. Nothing in Canada.
So it's perfect.
Like
We get a couple of guys together and carpool down there, and it sounds like a great weekend. So there's a good chance that we're going to make it happen. So
that's awesome.
Sounds
I would
awesome.
love to have you guys, and I think we're going to even have like a podcast room. I think that
Cool.
people are going to be able to like schedule and like do podcasts, and so a host of other people. But you guys would be welcome to participate in that.
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Awesome.
Because we were talking about a whole portable setup and getting a hotel room set up for podcasting and all that. So it's just a cool way to, we've been talking to so many people over the last, 6 months to a year here, and it'd be nice to actually meet some of these people in person. So, and I think that's the event to do it at. So
Yeah, and I would tell you that you would have, you'd have a plethora of backcountry badasses there to
Yeah.
to have to record. I think that you guys can bang out a lot of stuff there. Just I haven't really been around, a group of people that are, one, more genuine and care about the resource, two, have the crazy backcountry skills, and
Right.
three, like, are good communicators. I
Yeah.
think it's just and that runs the gamut from brand new folks to Greg Munther, who's killing mountain goats, and he's like 73 years old, and he's killing them with a
Jeez.
so it's like the guy. I mean, it's pretty rad. The kind of the different of kind of I guess people represented at the rendezvous.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Land, I got to bring it back, and I got another question on the BHA front in terms of just the management of that group. So, you got a ton of different chapters. Each one of them has their own issues. Obviously, you guys have, like yourself, good vision and leadership, but like, how do you keep a handle on all the different issues that are popping up in all those areas, and ensuring that each one is kind of being addressed with the same values?
It's a great question. So I think the first thing I would say is that, BHA, ever since we were started around that campfire in 2004, we've really prided ourselves on, our boots on the ground kind of knowledge, expertise, and passion. And so, what we really do is at a national staff level is really help enhance those voices. And so an example would be, this year in Wyoming, there was a, piece of public ground that was going to be traded. And if that had been traded, it would have cut off access to a large amount of public hunting opportunities. Nobody knew about it, and the member brought it to us. We started a petition, through social media and through traditional media, getting the word out. And, that was going to be a done deal. I mean, I think the state land board was ready to vote 5 yes on that. And a month later, they voted 5 no, 5-0 no. So it's like, to me, that was just an example of it's kind of that grassroots bubble up. I think, as we are getting bigger and there's all these different issues, and everybody has their own kind of interpretation, and we have this kind of mothership that really and mantra that was started, around that campfire, is that the question about how we kind of keep, track of that is really with our regional chapter coordinators. And so, it's not perfect yet. I would say there's some hiccups that are going on there. And that's really, I think, we've talked about communication a little bit during this podcast, but, communication is key. And so, these chapter coordinators can help, have those conversations. And so that, one, everybody's on, at least knows what's going on. And then we can kind of work together on what issues we engage in. And so, we've got somebody that just came on down the southeast to cover our chapter down there. We've got somebody coming on next week up in New York and Pennsylvania. We have somebody coming up, coming on board in Canada soon. We have somebody down in the Southwest. We have somebody over that covers kind of the Northwest in, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. So, like, if I would say our biggest need at BHA right now, it is to help staff up so that we can, take advantage of the opportunities that are being presented by us, through our volunteer base, help grow that volunteer base, and then help, have them engage on some of these national issues that, quite frankly, without push from many different parts, doesn't get done. And so, the easiest way to answer that is it's a people thing and a communications thing.
Right. Yeah.
Totally.
Cool. Well, I want to change topics a little bit. But before we do, is there anything else you want to chat about regarding the BHA before we do?
I think the only thing I would say is that really, like, your voice counts, right? Yeah. Like all these things we've been talking about today, like these things do not happen in a vacuum. And, a lot of people don't feel like their voice counts anymore. And I couldn't think that was farther than the truth. And that's what we're trying to do is really, provide that opportunity and then, provide the megaphone. And I think there's the saying, it goes, if you're not sitting at the dinner table, you're on the menu. And really what that means to me is that if you're not participating, then your interests aren't being represented. And so I think, that's the one I think I would leave, at least on BHA, is that's exactly what we're trying to do, is make sure that, kind of the average man and woman have a voice in all these big issues.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we think you guys are doing an awesome job down there, and we really need to use what's happening in the States as an example up here. So keep up the good work with everything you're doing.
We're in this together.
Yeah. If guys want to get involved, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so you can follow us on Facebook, and Instagram. Pretty easy to find there. And then our website is backcountryhunters.org. Doesn't mean we don't care about the anglers. It just was a shorter way for us to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's backcountryhunters.org. There's a ton of information. There's information about our state chapters there. I know that the British Columbia chapter updates their page often. And so that's a good place for people to go to learn more. And then you can become a member. It's $25 US to become a member. And, it's hard to go out to dinner with your significant other for $25 or less. And so for me, it's a screaming deal. And, the more people that we have engaged, the louder our voice can be.
Yeah, for sure, man. Perfect.
Yeah, and you get the Backcountry Journal.
Oh, yeah. So there's a couple of things. Good. Thank you for that. So we have, I think, world-class magazine that comes out 4 times a year called the Backcountry Journal. It's grown from, kind of being stapled together to now a 64-page kind of glossy, I think, really good magazine that has stories and how-tos and chapter updates, and it's I think really good. Mm-hmm. And then as a member, you also will get hooked up with your local chapter, and if you don't have a local chapter, again, we're kind of in the process of forming those, and so for those that want to help us do that, they can contact Ty Stubblefield, who is our fearless, red-bearded, bald chapter coordinator who's really in charge of creating new chapters. And he's easy to get a hold of, just ty@backcountryhunters.org.
Perfect. Good. Well, Kelly and I are 15 days away. We're heading way up north, Fort Nelson. I don't know if you know where that is, but pretty much at the top of British Columbia. And the goal is to get a sheep. And I know you had a successful hunt. I guess it was 2016. I'm curious the story behind that photo you got up on your Instagram there.
Yeah. So, by the way, good luck.
Thank you. We're going to need it.
Like the country that you're working in is a little bit different than I was working in. Yeah. Much more wide open, and I wish you all the luck. And they're amazing critters. That hunt was, God, it was like, it was, I think probably one of the most fondest memories, really, as I go forward in life. And, wow. The taking of, what I think is a good representative of the species. He wasn't the biggest ram, but he also, wasn't, a little 2 or 3 year old either. But I think there's that piece. But really, it was like the time I got to share with friends in the woods, and I had some pretty crazy things happen to me, and the ability to have those woods to kind of get your mind right. Right. I think that we have these busy lives, and a lot of pressures on us in this modern world. It's like it doesn't seem like it's slowing down at all. It seems like life just gets more and more complicated, and when you get out in the woods, it's not complicated at all. It's about food, and it's about water, and it's about the hunt that you're on. And to me, I take a lot of solace in that. But no, it was it was an awesome hunt. It took me 15 days before I killed that ram. It wasn't, wow. 15 days in a row. It was 5 days, and then 3 days, and then I think 7 days, and so lots of ups and downs. I will tell you that after the first week, I've been hunting by myself for the second half of those 6 days, and it was raining. It'd been raining on us the entire time, and I've been reading this kind of Armageddon book, where this kind of end of the world book, and at the very end, this family comes together, and I hadn't missed my wife that bad, and I don't know how long. And I had this aching for her. And so as I'm coming out of the woods, try to call her as soon as I get cell phone coverage, and can't get a hold of her. And then pulling off the road, off the interstate, to fill up my body with some fried chicken after being in the woods and eating kind of skimpy. And I went to call her again and looked down at the phone, and it was dark out, and just kind of drifted a little bit on the off ramp, and ended up, overcorrecting, hitting a sign, rolling my truck 2.5 times, and totally my truck. And it was the scariest thing. I can remember just talking about it now. I start to remember the sounds, and everybody talks about how things go into slow motion. It definitely did. And, wow. I was very lucky that I didn't get hurt. But I was really screwed up mentally from that. I had a hard time sleeping for a long time after that, and the only place I could really get a good rest was in the woods. And it wasn't the comfortable bed. My shoulder, my back hurt, but that it was more like that flat ground, and staying on a pad and like the fresh air and
Right.
the sounds and whatever. And so that was kind of the start of some episodes up there. And I had another one where I was chasing a bunch of ewes all day and knowing that there was a ram that at some point was going to be with them, and closed the distance and was sitting there waiting. And a nice ram about the size of the one that I shot showed up, and I had a nice ponderosa. I think it was about 2.5 feet across, and it was on a real steep hill, but it had like a little teeny, I guess, branch that was cut off, came out about 6 inches, about 2.5 inches in diameter. And so I was like, this is perfect. And I set my gun up there and had a bead on him and took the gun off safety and was breathing 1, 2, 3 and pushing out with my breath and pulling the trigger. And that branch broke as I did that.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it was like, oh, wow, I was right. The gun goes off, I fall like head over heels. When the gun hits the hill, it lodges, the butt of the gun lodges, and the scope hits me in the jaw, almost knocks me out. And so I wake up at the bottom of this kind of little ravine. Not wake up, but I kind of get done rolling, and it's dusty, and my head's kind of foggy, and I'm like, what just happened? And I was super nervous that I'd shot a ram. I had no idea where the shot had gone, and so I waited for a while. It was starting to get dark, and I started doing concentric circles around kind of where the animals have been, and then nothing. It gets dark. I'm still looking for about another hour and a half, and didn't find anything. And went back to camp that night all by myself, and just I felt horrible. And it was like, man, is this thing ever going to happen? And like, I think I just wounded this animal, and just down in the dumps, and didn't sleep very well that night. And the next morning got up and told myself that, I was just going to go try to find this ram if I had wounded him, and spent all day looking for him, went to bedding areas and really, I just never saw any blood, never saw any, like a wounded animal or anything. And so kind of came to peace that I didn't really didn't shoot him. And at that point realized that I needed to sight in my rifle. And this is kind of where it all turned around. And I looked down, and there's this, this old snag that's about 100 yards away. I'm like, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to put an X in that thing. I'm going to shoot at it and see where I'm at. And as I'm walking down, I find this like old tuna can, and it's like no other person is going to have a tuna can up there, unless it's like a sheep hunter, like the place where I'm at. It's just like, that's not happening. And so it's like this gift from this former sheep hunter. And then, so I walked down to the snag, and there's this perfect little crutch that fits that tuna can perfectly. I'm like, oh, this is getting better. And I go back up, sit down about 100 yards away, and I just center punch that thing. And I guess, all that kind of like helped me turn my mental state around. Right. And ended up, shooting around that next morning. And my cousin showed up early that morning, and so he was on the hunt with me. We spotted some rams on the hill, and we went after them. And I kind of had patterned them by that point, and we lost sight of him going off the top of this ridge, and I had a real good idea where he was going to be. So we started hustling, and I kind of put my head down and was in intercept mode versus kind of a predator look mode, and was just bombing. And my cousin like yells at me like 2 or 3 times. He tells me later, and finally gets my attention on the last one. I turn around, and he points up the hill, and there was a different ram that's on the side of the hill. It's like 200 yards away that I hadn't even seen. And so I stopped, took my backpack off, and shot that ram within like literally 30 seconds. I didn't even think about it. And after all the spot and stalks and all the failures and everything I'd gone through that hunt, like to have it happen like that, like I'm kind of glad it happened like that. Though I was looking forward to kind of that spot and stalk and ultimate kill. But after that ram was down, it was it was a glorious kind of thing. And then, that night we ate tenderloin over the open fire. And as we were cooking over the open fire, a young bull moose walked right through camp, which was pretty
Wow.
So it was, it was a saga for sure. There's lots of more details and some mishaps that happened, but that's kind of the highlights of the hunt. And again, I think, having these places, one that you can, make a fool out of yourself and then have the opportunity to kind of work through that. And I want that to be available, for as many people as possible for, as many years going forward. And that's really, I think, what drives me every single day is wanting to make sure that you and I and, everybody else that comes after it has those opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many elements to that story you just shared, man, that really bring it home to why public land is so important and why it's something we need to preserve for everybody, mostly including future generations. So that's pretty wild, man. You got me super excited to to head out. I know this trip that we're going on, the odds of success aren't necessarily in our favor, but we're going to come back at the very least with some good stories, and we're going to see some beautiful country. So
photos.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So
how
excited.
How long are you guys going for?
It's going to be a 10-day hunt. I wish we had more time, but that's all we got to deal with. So,
And are you guys going in on foot, or what are you doing?
We're going in on foot. Yeah.
Ooh, doggies! You guys are doing it the hard way.
We're doing it the hard way. We
yep.
figure we're still young, so now's the time to do it because it's going to come to a point where we're not going to feel like it anymore. So,
yep.
So we'll switch
a couple
to horses.
of us have bought some ice axes, so things are going to get interesting.
Now, speaking of, have you heard Bill Hanlon's story about the Iceman?
No.
Okay, so either I'll hook you up on the phone,
Okay.
Or over email, but you guys got to hear that story beforehand. And in shorthand, it's basically, and I won't tell you like the punchlines or anything, but they're up there sheep hunting, come up to a glacier, find a guy that had been frozen in the ice for like 500 years, totally, completely preserved, like still had like the stomach contents for what he, like the couple weeks or like a couple days before that, like had a jacket that was made out of 30 different animals. Like Bill tells a way better story, but you're going up, in a similar place. And I think that like, it'd be awesome for you guys to have that in the back of your mind. Like, is there things you can find out here besides these elusive sheep?
Yeah, we'll check it out for sure. I think that kind of, just to roll it back to your story too, and even that story of those guys out there, like the small portion of your whole story was actually the taking of the animal, but there's like 90% of it that you actually remembered first, right? So Mike and I have talked about that a couple times on previous episodes, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I will tell you that back to that kind of like solace piece and like just like getting time away from the craziness. Some of my favorite memories are the like midday naps that I took. And like, you're in this steep country, the sun is beating down and like you're working hard all morning. It's like you fall asleep for that. You never know how long you're asleep, but you go out deep, right? And you wake up and you're kind of slobbering a little bit, and you're like, "Whoa, I wonder what happened." And it's like this best feeling. Like, for me, like the way I walk away from that is like, there's no place that I feel like more at home and that relaxed than at that very moment, And so enjoy your trophy naps. Hopefully the weather provides those opportunities for you.
Yeah.
But you guys are going to have an awesome adventure, and I'm totally jealous.
Awesome. Well, before we let you go, any final words of wisdom for us?
I think I go back to something we talked about earlier. Is you guys got a bully pulpit with this podcast, and you're able to talk to, a ton of people through this kind of medium. And I think keep spreading that word. I think that it's so important that we're putting the positive face, on the hunting community. And I think the story of, where you guys kind of have come to hunting later in life, like that's a story that's being played out now all over the place. And I think you guys are great spokesman for that. And I don't want to put, too much weight on your shoulders, but I think that, as you go forward, think about that responsibility that you have and this great opportunity through this podcast to reach the masses and, keep crushing what you guys are doing and, just appreciate everything that you are doing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
it's something that Kelly and I talk about quite a bit. Is we now have a responsibility to, do our part in the hunting world. So we're lucky that we have so many people that tune into this thing, and we're very lucky that guys like yourself are willing to take the time to chat with us. So thanks a lot for your time, man. We should definitely keep in touch, do this again sometime, and we definitely want to see you in April. So.
Awesome. I would do like nothing more than to give you guys big high fives in April. Awesome.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, man. Take care.
Yep. See ya.
Bye-bye. Sweet. That was awesome. Yeah.
It's nice to talk to somebody that's so passionate about the whole thing.
Totally,
like from
man.
front to end. And we've been talking to quite a few people lately that actually everybody we talk to is passionate about it. But Land's obviously in an interesting position just in what he does. And it's awesome. Yeah,
man. Just him sort of, explaining that last story, even just the nap had me grinning from ear to ear, just kind of, relating to those moments and getting excited about what's ahead of us here. So
I remember as soon as he said that, it actually put me in, my memory shifted, and I'm sitting down facing southwest.
Yeah.
And the sun is kind of, it's late afternoon, and the sun was beating down on us, and we're laying in the long grass, basically. And I remember both of us just being bagged from the hike we had that day. And I think we both just passed out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it was either, but I think it was almost like, when you jump into a hot tub or something and you just get that it's kind of like that.
That's the exact moment that I was thinking about too, actually,
Nice.
Which is funny. And
I'm trying to describe it without saying where it was. But.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I totally, woke up and did the mouth wipe because I was drooling. So it's just, I think that's why I was smiling as he was telling that, because totally been in that situation.
And it's kind of cool to know that, like, as you're having that nap, the only thing that could literally wake you up, because there's no wind or storms or anything rolling in, would have been like a horse saying, "Excuse me," with a hunter, or like just anybody, or maybe some other hikers walking by.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty much the only thing that would have woken you up in that moment.
Yeah.
We knew we were out there by ourselves.
There was nobody around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a pretty cool spot.
Yeah, man, definitely. Well, we're out of beer. So I think this was a fun episode. I enjoyed it.
For sure. Yeah, me too.
Don't forget to buy those t-shirts. They're sweet. We had orders coming in while we're doing the interviews. So whoever those people were, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for chipping in for conservation. If you have, it's optional. If you already support groups, then no worries. It's not something you have to do, and we're not going to hold it against you. It's just an option that's there. And we'll make all these things public, obviously, so people know how much money's been raised and where it's being sent. So awesome. I think BHA is going to be the next one we add to the list there. It's just all the logistics and making sure we're doing this stuff right. So shirts aren't available to American listeners yet, but we can make it work. It's just we're not set up on the website. So if you're in the States and you want us to send you one, just send us an email, info@therookiehunter.com, and we'll line up a way to get those down to you. The bamboo t-shirts are ready for the backcountry. Those are nice ones.
Mm-hmm.
If you're wanting it for the athletic side of things, the cotton ones are cheaper. But
so just to talk a little bit about the bamboo, like the qualities of the bamboo that I noticed is it sits a little bit heavier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the right word, but it just kind of has more of a form fit around your
like shoulders. A bit of, I don't want to use weight in a bad way, but in a good way. It just feels like a solid shirt. So,
but it is, I think some of the qualities are, it doesn't hold scent.
Yeah.
It's it's the
closest thing we could get to merino wool. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So, and they're made in Canada.
Yeah. Which is even better. So yeah, you don't have to pay duty for that shit when it crosses the border either. Another bonus. Unless Trump gets rid of it.
You mean if we send it down to the States?
If we send it down there, yeah.
I don't know how that works because we got to, well, yeah, you're right.
Unless Donald gets rid of NAFTA, then we're screwed. We'll figure it out. But Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys. We'll have another episode going up on the 15th for sure. We might even do one in between then. So we'll talk to you all soon.
Cheers.
Happy hunting, guys. Cheers.